Hello, Calling Up Community. I'm Claudia Alec, and today we will be reflecting on predominantly white institutions requesting free casting consultation from people of color and some related topics. So this is a reflection inspired by a member of our community asking for some advice. This is a person of color who had been approached by a predominantly white institution, and this institution was asking for advice for suggested names to cast, specifically of someone who would be of the same ethnicity as this performer. And they, of course, gave the names because we work in an industry where getting work is one of the most important parts of being an actor. So it's a gift to be suggested for roles, right? And yet this performer ended up having an incredibly negative experience, and it was very racist. And my colleague felt deep guilt. And the question this person brought to me was, did I mess up? What was my responsibility? What did I do inside this process to make this happen? And I found it fascinating that an outside person of color is the person who's doing the most thought and feeling the most guilt about the white, predominantly white institution hurting and harming a brown person that they hired to do work with them. But let's break it down. So let's first look at the institution. The institution is an arts institution, and they have decided to do a production that has a narrative that is not a white dominant narrative, and a production that has characters that are non-white characters. Now, they had a choice. They could have decided to do yellowface. Institutions decide to do that. They say, we lack the cultural competency or the track record of the relationships to actually find Asian people. So what we'll do is we'll just ask random people for advice, and if we don't get any, we'll just cast a white person, which of course creates several bad outcomes. It creates economic inequity. Brown people don't get paid to be in the industry. White people get paid to be in the industry. White people get to play brown people in the industry. They get paid. Economic inequity. It also inevitably leads to misrepresentation, which hurts and harms the culturally specific community more and only serves white supremacy culture. So it's progress, and it's a good thing that they've decided that they're actually going to cast a culturally specific actor for the culturally specific role. That's progress. And it's progress that they are reaching out to the community, to the actual people in the community, to get advice on who to cast. That's progress that they're asking us, that they aren't asking other white people who lack competency in relationship. However, it's indicative that they had to ask. Like, this indicates that they, as an institution, do not have a track record, a history of producing this type of work. This is why they don't have the relationships. They don't know who to call. They don't know who to cast. They lack this capability. But also, this indicates that they don't have anyone inside their institution or their production that can serve this particular need. And frankly, casting is one of the most important parts of a play. It's very difficult to do a successful production with very bad performers, right? So it's telling if the institution has decided that they will imbue the positions with authority, but they will allow them to lack all competency to do one of the most important tasks. It's indicative, but it's progress that folks are asking. So here's the question. What's the responsibility of the performer of color who was asked to do the free labor? They didn't mind doing the free labor. They did not mind subsidizing the institution that normally pays people to do the casting. They didn't mind that. They were okay with it. What they minded was that they were recommending their colleague for a bad experience. So what could they have asked to, like, find out if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing they're recommending somebody for? Personally, I don't know if that's your job, but also I'm not sure why you should be helping institutions out for free when they have a track record of not helping you out. But let's ask a better question. And the better question is this. This is the question I will sometimes ask. I will start with a positive affirmative comment. I will say, I would be happy to recommend individuals to work at your institution for free. I'm happy to give you that free work. But can you tell me a little bit more about your internalized white supremacy culture? And then if they respond with, well, we don't have that, I know that that institution is not one that I should recommend a lot of my colleagues to work at, because they are in full denial of the reality of their institution, which means they are not actively working to interrupt or stopping it. All they're doing is optic-based programming to give the impression to others that they are not the thing that they are, and they haven't done the work. So I'll ask, tell me about your internalized white supremacy culture. And if they react as if I've insulted them, I know that they have more work they need to do, and that my people probably would have a negative experience. This works for all of my marginalized identities. I get asked a lot to recommend actors with disabilities for roles because for some reason people think that because I have a disability, I must know all of the other performers with disabilities, and I'm actually not a casting agency. However, I belong to a marginalized community that's often locked out of the industry. So of course, I'm going to recommend my people to get paid, to get work, to be able to represent ourselves. But I'm going to ask the question first, can you tell me about your ableist culture? And if I receive a response that indicates that they don't think their culture is ableist, that tells me that they have not done the work or the labor to make sure their rehearsal room will be equipped to deal with the ableism that will inevitably take place. But whose responsibility is it? Question, the person who got cast, was it their responsibility to ask very specific questions? Did they possibly get the vibe that this might not be the safest, best gig for them? Did they need the money? Who was in the room when the bad things were happening? Was it those individual participants' responsibility to interrupt what was happening? All I know is that I've got a colleague who received an email, who offered a few names, who's feeling a great amount of responsibility right now for a process that they were barely involved in. Currently, a lot of institutions are trying to disrupt white supremacy culture by increasing the amount of BIPOC programming, centered programming that they have inside their seasons. And this is a very positive thing, but it also means that we're going to be thinking about this a lot in the future. So, my colleagues, this was a reflection. I have no distinct answers. I do have that useful question that I encourage you to try and ask, because if somebody can't acknowledge the inevitable internalized white supremacy culture of their institution, then they aren't going to be able to dismantle it. And if your institution is not explicitly anti-racist, it has racist underpinnings. And that's just something you have to be really aware of, so that you aren't asking BIPOC folk to put themselves in harm's way so that you can do your core mission, which is creating beautiful cultural productions and connecting to human beings. I look forward to us thinking about this more in the future. All right. Thanks, Calling Up Community.